Hi there. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Renee Sager, and I'm a life coach, and I help women in the war with food so they can live a full and meaningful life. Now, this first kind of intro episode, I just want to give you a little background on me, where I came from, how I got here, why I'm doing what I'm doing, just so you know who you're listening to, who you're watching, and hopefully it helps you feel a little bit more safe and kind of start to connect with me and have a deeper level of trust instead of me just getting information from you. I like to put it all out there for everyone to see. I'm literally an open book. Nothing is ever off topic or off limits for me to talk about. I actually love talking about all the things that often make people uncomfortable. And I think that's one thing that attracts my clients to me is because I say what a lot of people are thinking, and those thoughts that they're thinking, they feel makes them crazy. And we're going to get more into this as I talked today and through future episodes. But I just want you to know my hope from tapping into this YouTube and following me on other channels, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or email, is that you realize you're not alone, you're not hopeless, and you can have the life that you want. So on this channel, we're going to be talking about all things body image, eating disorder recovery, confidence, mindset, relationships, all of it, because I love all of it. I really help women overcome food issues, work through them, address anxiety, and create confidence. But, as I just said, like 4 things right there, it's really all connected. Kind of how we do one thing is how we do everything. So I'm hoping to shine a light on maybe some topics that you felt in the dark about, you felt ashamed of, you felt like if anyone ever knew, they would just never talk to you again because it would be the worst thing ever and so embarrassing and you'd have to crawl under a rock and die. I've been there for many years, and I hope that you, again, can watch this and come away feeling a sense of hope, a sense of excitement. You're able to pick up new tips, new tools to ultimately get you on the path of building the life that you want, specifically you, nobody else. And maybe you're unsure at this point. That's fine too. Don't worry. We're going to get through all of this. So first off, my name is Renee, and I'm going to talk to you today primarily about my history with eating disorders. I may touch on some other issues like losing my mom, alcoholism, relationships, but I might save some of those for our upcoming episodes. So I'll try and keep this kind of short because I feel like I could probably talk for several hours about my history with food. So it started when I was 14, which seems to be pretty common. It's that time where your body starts to change a little bit. You're going through puberty. Maybe you gained a little bit of weight. You're starting to pay attention to the opposite sex. You're starting to pay attention to the magazines. And that's exactly what I did. So it wasn't like this hard line in the sand where this is the day I became anorexic. I don't think anything in my eating disorder history has been like that, like a line. I think it's kind of more on a spectrum. Whereas with my alcoholism, it's like, 7/25/09, sobriety date, bam. Food stuff is different because a lot of it is mental. So going back 14, I started, so even before that, growing up, I didn't have any trauma. Like I had an amazing childhood. I had great parents, grandparents, brother, loving family. I never had any sexual abuse. I never had anything traumatic. I never had I almost felt like a lot of therapists, treatment teams, psychologists wanted me to have, because they're like, oh, are you sure you haven't been molested? Are you sure you haven't been assaulted? Are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. because I feel like have made it easier to put me in a box because it's really common for people with eating disorders to have had some sexual trauma, to have had some abuse, and I didn't. I grew up, again, great family, loving, supportive, all the things. Couldn't have asked for more. And when I was in 7th or 8th grade, even actually before that, I would say 4th grade is kind of my first memory, I started having some trouble with girlfriends. Again, I could talk on this topic for days as well. But, wondering, feeling like I didn't fit in, feeling like I didn't have friends. I had one friend in particular who started at that point, I feel, and again, this is all coming from my perspective, I feel at the age of whatever you are in 4th grade, started to manipulate me, started to push people away, started the gossip, started saying things that I never said, and isolating me in 4th grade. That's a hard time because I didn't have the tools, I didn't have anything to be able to cope with that. It literally felt like death. And that progressed 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And that's kind of when my eating disorder was starting. I was in soccer, I'd always been active, and I started working out a little bit more. And with that came the compliments. Oh, you look so good. What are you doing? Tell me what you're eating. How do you work out so much? At 14. I was never overweight. I mean, I put a little bit of the puberty, 10 pounds, whatever that every child goes through. I normal. And so 14, the girlfriend thing started becoming a nightmare. I still have a lot of emotions and thoughts and feelings about that time in my life and about all of it. Again, probably going to save that for another time. So it wasn't pretty for years, going up all the way through high school. And again, still obviously I'm carrying some things from that today. That I'm not perfect, people. So I started restricting. I don't even know that I was restricting because I became really obsessed with magazines, fitness magazines. My dad has always been active. We've always had a gym in our basement my entire childhood. He'd always get up and drink green smoothies, and he still does, and he's 72. That's just the way he is. And my mom was pretty much always dieting. Kind of typical. Do I blame either of them? No, absolutely not. Do I think if my mom wouldn't have dieted or my dad wouldn't have worked out, I wouldn't have had an eating disorder? Not really. I kind of feel like it's just the way I was wired. So I started 14, running more, working out more, and paying attention more to what I was eating. Around that time, my mom also had, like I said, she had been a yo-yo dieter, and I, at the time, was like, oh, I kind of want to lose this chub, I want to get rid of this. And she's like, well, I could use your support because I had been working out more and I was way more controlled around my food at that time. And she's like, well, why don't you help me diet? And we'll do Atkins together. It was either Atkins or cabbage soup that I did the first time. And one of my worst memories, I guess, it's not fondest, was we were gonna go boating. And I was 15, I think. We were gonna go boating and we were on this diet and everyone was stopping for cheese pizza, stuffed crust. I love stuffed crust pizza. And so I didn't get to eat it though because I was on Atkins. I think it was Atkins or grapefruit. I can't remember. Or the cabbage soup. I don't know. I just remember that my lunch was a bowl of spinach, 2 hard-boiled eggs, and mustard for dressing, while everyone else was eating cheese pizza, stuffed crust. And, even at that time, I kind of feel like I had I'm superior energy because it was willpower. It was doing something that other people couldn't do. And I could see that and I could feel that and I felt superior. I knew how much my mom struggled. I knew how much other people struggled and it just wasn't that hard. It was like this thing in my brain started to shift where I became addicted to that. I became addicted to that feeling. And I continued on that restrictive anorexic eating pattern for I think the first time that I threw up, I was 17. I think I probably would have been diagnosed as anorexic from a weight standpoint at 14 or 15, maybe 15. So I was pretty severely, anorexic, if not anorexic at times, and orthorexic, with exercise bulimia. And that was my life. That started becoming my life. I got obsessed with cooking, and I was a really good cook. You can ask my whole family and people that I went to school with, because I was always baking. I was always baking and always cooking, and I still to this day really love it, but it's very different because I like eat the stuff now. Not everything, but the energy behind it is very different. And so I did that though because I didn't trust anyone else to cook my food. I did that because I got so obsessed with the calories that I was consuming. Everywhere in my room, everywhere in my car were little Post-its of my calories from the day. Every single thing. And if I couldn't see someone making it, I freaked out. There were multiple times where I'd order a non-fat sugar-free latte and throw it away because I was like, I think they're probably trying to make me fat. Like, I got obsessed and terrified of pretty much everything. I would only eat at home. I stopped going out to lunch with other students during our lunch break, and I said I was going home to save money. And I wasn't saving money. And I would go home and I would eat my sandwich on my low-calorie bread with my Carl Budding, like super thin turkey and lettuce and an iceberg, and work out. And my calories were so low, and it was all just this control. It was this rigidity, and I was super structured. I got up every morning and I ran, and everything was just like dialed in, just like perfection, just do, 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 do. But I was like a tightly wound rubber band ready to break at any second. I would just like zip through the day. I always had to get my run in, had to get my food in, and I was just always anxious. I mean, even in childhood, I was super anxious. Anytime my parents left for vacations, I would cry. Like, I still don't know what that was about. But I just remember, thinking that they were going to die in a plane accident, a car accident. They were never going to come back. Just severe anxiety, sobbing. And gosh, it makes me so sad to think of myself back then. But it's like, I have no idea where that came from. So always been anxious, always been really tightly wound, always been kind of on the edge. And the anorexia and the food control kind of was a great way to funnel that anxiety. And I struggled in school quite a bit anyways, staying on the topic of food. When I was 15, 16, I drank a little bit in high school, not very much. I was usually the designated driver. I did really good in school in the first couple years of high school. And just like you're all around high achiever, perfectionist, blah, blah, blah. But then I started binge eating at night. And I mean binge eating to the point where if you're watching this, you may relate, where you literally think your stomach might rip. I would binge eat so much food that I would not be able to walk upright to go lay down, to go to sleep, because it was always at night. I would try and restrict my food as long as possible, because the second I started eating, I had no idea how my day was going to go. I lost all control. I was like a beast. I was like a wild animal. The second I started eating something, it was off to the races. I needed to make sure I was as productive as I could be in the first part of the day, because after 4, 5, 6, 7 p.m., odds are I wasn't going to do anything besides eat. And I would eat and eat and eat. And in hindsight, it all makes so much more sense to me. I help people with this as well. But at the time, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? I clearly have no control, because anytime I start eating, I just can't stop. And so this was like, okay, you need to pull the reins back even more. So tomorrow you cannot have this. And I kept doing this, and inevitably every single night I was, at this time I was driving. So I was able to, and I wasn't working, but I would steal money from my mom's purse, or just find odd ways to make money, because I had to hustle at that time. I was like, had to keep my problem surviving. I had to keep my binge eating alive, and I had to make money, and I would do whatever I could to make money. And I oftentimes would just eat food at the store while I was there. But at that time I was driving, so I would buy food while I was out and then go home and eat it. Like after everyone went to bed, I'd sneak back out to my car and get it. And I stayed on that path for a couple years, and that was just awful. Just like the feeling of going to bed just in so much pain and just feeling so out of control. And unfortunately, that out of control feeling kept going for like another 10 years, because then I started throwing up. And I remember vividly the day that I did that and thinking, oh shit, this was like the territory I never said I would go into. I never thought I'd become bulimic. And when I did, it was just so much relief and so much fear. And, that really, I continued on that path for like the next 10 years. And bulimia was just like, not that anorexia wasn't worse. I mean, you can't even compare, but God, I think because I was in the bulimic cycle for so much longer, my heart just really goes out to those that still struggle with this, and just binge eating in general, just any food thing, honestly, because it's something you do every single day. Like alcohol, I just stopped. I had to go to treatment like 3 times and wrecked cars and stole money and got kicked out of every house I lived in and got fired from every job I had and did all that stuff. So it's not just, but once I got it, once I stopped drinking, once I got into sobriety, it was like, oh, okay, I don't have to deal with this. Done. Like it was so much easier for me than the food stuff. Especially with the way people try and help you with food stuff now, is they just basically give you an eating disorder, which is a huge reason for why I do what I do. So anyways, staying on track, I was bulimic for like a decade, and that was just awful. I know for sure I'm going to be bringing up multiple stories specifically throughout this YouTube channel. I feel like one of my darkest times was when I was living with a roommate, and like I couldn't not binge and purge. It was my fix. It was my high. It was my drug of choice. I ran around like a psycho, like I was like I always felt like Jekyll and Hyde. Like the first half of my day, I'd be great. I'd go to work. I'd look like this. I'd look great. And then I'd get off work and I was like, the darkness would come out of me, and I'd just eat everything. And I'd go to Safeway and McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, and I knew all the 99-cent meals menus because I just needed a lot. I just needed a lot of food. And it was mainly just like I would eat it and then throw it up and then eat it and then throw it up. And that's exactly how I drank too. So I was sober at this point. So a lot of my anxiety was just manifesting in different ways, which I'll talk about later too, about with work and relationships and all of that. But I drank and I ate in the same way, where I just eat a shit ton and then throw up and then eat and then throw up. And it was exhausting. My throat hurt. I knew all the health side effects most bulimics do, the teeth, the eyes, the throat, the hair, the everything. My dad was a dentist. Like, I know, and I couldn't stop. I felt like I had no choice. I wanted to so desperately, but I couldn't. And just the energy that I expended, the money that I expended, I mean, hundreds of dollars a week. I still can't think back to, especially in my college years, how much money I went through, because it was just like, oh God, it was so much. And I knew where every single buffet was. I knew where every single bathroom was. I'd go out at weird hours. I'd throw up in disgusting gas station bathrooms, and it was just a nightmare. I was never present in my life. I was never present in my life. I didn't get to, anytime I was with people, I was always thinking about food. Whether I was anorexic or bulimic or just binge eating at night, it was always on the back of my mind. I was always thinking, is this going to help me get skinnier? Is this going to make me gain weight? How am I going to burn it off? Is this going to, how am I going to get rid of the wrappers? It was everything. I had no more space in my brain besides food. And I went to treatment a few times, and I have thoughts about treatment that I will share with you later too. And every time I went, I relapsed like 3 weeks later. Treatment was so easy. I even went in there. I was like, all right, give me the meal plan. And they thought I was lying. I knew they thought I was lying. I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I am going to be fine. Like, I'm totally fine. I feel great. How many calories you got for me? Let's load it up. let's do it. And they're like, okay, but if you eat a cookie, I was like, no, I feel great about eating a cookie. Like, let's go. I think probably the first time when I was on more the anorexic end versus the just full on bulimia end, the anorexic end was a little bit more scary. But even then, I was just like, thank God someone is controlling my food because I can't. I wanted to live in treatment. I actually wanted to go to prison so they could feed me there because I was like, that's the only way I can be controlled. Like, I am so out of control. The only way I can eat and not binge or not throw up is if someone puts me in a room and locks me up and feeds me food under the door. That's it. That's how I felt for years and years. And so treatment never really worked. I saw all the therapists, I saw all the dietitians, I hired multiple macro calculations, I went to lots of personal trainers, I read all the Google forums, my life, I am an expert in being bulimic, and also I really think also in just in the recovery process from it, because I literally tried everything. And I now get to help women who have felt that insanity. Maybe you're not bulimic. A lot of my clients aren't. Maybe you're not in an active eating disorder. A lot of my clients aren't. Maybe it's just this binging. Maybe it's just the obsession. Maybe you're just tired of it controlling everything. And I get it. And most of my clients have done everything. Myself included, I also went to the 12-step programs, which I'm going to talk about too later on, and that why I didn't think it was helpful and ways that it is helpful. But what I did was I finally reached a point. I finally got to a point after spending years, decades, not plural, it wasn't 20 years, but it was over 10, of just feeling so out of control that I finally had to throw my hands up. And I just want to say, just because you throw your hands up doesn't mean you don't put them down in like 20 minutes after you put them up, right? And so that I kind of did do that. I was like, okay, I cannot do this. I cannot do this anymore. I have literally tried everything. Anything you can think of, I tried it. I had done it. I had worked with the people. Dietitians didn't know what to do with me. Clinically trained dietitians I would work with, and half of them I felt were worse off than I was. I was like, this bitch is crazy. Do you know what she's doing? Like, do you know what she says? And just the craziest things. And I would exchange stories with other people in treatment, or even just girlfriends that I have now, about their psycho dietitians or therapists. And it's like, this goes for anyone, any doctor, any lawyer, any nurse, just because they have that title doesn't mean they know everything. And I am a huge advocate for advocating for yourself. If something feels weird, if something doesn't feel right, if your little spidey senses are saying, hold up, this feels not helpful, this feels like not the right thing for me, listen to that, okay? I also had some amazing dietitians. Gosh, what's her name? She was in Portland. I can't remember. I had 2 in Portland, a therapist and a dietitian, that were just 3 that were phenomenal. Bless their heart. And they shared with me really similar messaging, but I wasn't in the place yet where I could hear it. It took me, like I said, throwing my hands up and putting them down and throwing them back up for a long time too. I would get to that level of desperation, and then I'd be like, I'm going to take the control back. I really want to binge on all these Oreos, or I really want to, I would quit binging, and I would be in recovery or whatever, and I wouldn't have disordered eating stuff actively. But then I'd be like, but I really just want to lose 10 pounds. That was my last relapse, was trying to lose 10 pounds, basically. I was like, I feel good, I feel calm, I feel regular, I feel like my food stuff's been pretty good. I just want to lose these 10 or so pounds. And sent me off to the races, because with this work, sometimes your weight goes up and down. For me, I was really, really skinny in the beginning, and I've had compared to where I was, I've had a pretty big weight gain over the years, and it's hard. It's very hard. And I don't ever want anyone to think that this is easy. No, what you're going through is a challenge. I know, but I I also know that you can overcome it. You can get to the other side. You can live in a place where food doesn't control you anymore, which is where I'm at and which is what I help my clients do. And so I had to get to that point where I was like, I just cannot do this anymore. I am tired of wasting my life. I am tired of spinning my wheels and never feeling like I'm moving forward. I'm tired of missing time with my family. I'm tired of being stressed out every day, all day, always on edge, always angry. If someone cuts in on my binge time, I would get pissed. I'd be like, how dare you come home an hour early? This was my time to binge. This was my time to be with food. How dare you come out in the middle of the night while I'm binging? And I would get mean. And it felt horrible. It just wasn't a way I wanted to live anymore. And I finally had to get to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm done. I'm done, and no matter what, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to dieting. I'm not going back to restricting food, because restricting food and dieting is what took me back out every time. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, let's see, 26 minutes of my history with eating disorders and where I came from. And I'm just going to leave you with that today. And then just so you have an idea of where I came from. And now moving forward, for the last almost 2 years, I've been working with women who have been maybe at some point in a similar situation, or maybe like I mentioned before, they're just like, I often find that they tend to be in their 30s and 40s, because I feel like in your 20s and 30s, maybe 20s, teens for sure, 20s, you still feel like you can control it. Like I said, I wasn't in a place with those amazing healthcare providers to hear what they said, because I still thought I could do it. I still thought I could control it. I still thought I could just figure it out. And so, the women I work with they've been through the ringer. They've been through the rodeo. They've done everything, and they're done. They're like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do, but I know I don't want to do this anymore. I know I'm ready for something bigger. I know I'm ready for something better. And I know I'm meant to do more. And that's a huge thing for me in this work that I do. And a lot of it honestly is motivated by my mom. Like I said, she passed away 3 years ago now. And I just think like, gosh, how much time, I just wish she were still here so I could have helped her. Because I work with clients that, similarly to my mom was never anorexic or bulimic, but God, weight and food controlled her clearly. Like when I moved back in, I had to clean out tons of Nutrisystem diet food, tons of all this just garbage stuff to try and control her weight. And, that makes me incredibly sad, but it also really motivates me to help moms, to help other women, to help girlfriends, to help sisters, to help all of these women who just are ready for something better, who they know that like, this can't be it. It can't be this hard. I'm tired of this controlling me. And I help you create that. I help you break free. I help you end that war with food in your body so you can fulfill your purpose in life, so you can live without that constant chatter, with all that diet and food noise, without always questioning yourself, without hating yourself. So, all right, first episode, or whatever it's called on YouTube, is done. Renee Sager, life coach. There's going to be way more to come, so stay tuned for more.